Hello everyone, it's Nina and welcome back to my channel. Today's video is one I've wanted to do for so long, and that is a reading books outside of my comfort zone reading vlog. My general goal for this video is the fact that I have a lot of books on my physical TBR that I've acquired through one way or another, mostly through thrifting or like library bag sales, where they're kind of outside of the normal genres I typically read. And because they are so outside of my normal comfort zone, they're not necessarily the books I pick up when I'm like looking at my physical TBR, trying to decide what book I want to read next. So I thought a fun way to encourage myself to read these books would be if I put all of those books in one singular reading vlog and had to choose from them for my next book I'm going to pick up. So we have a couple different books to go through. I am going to primarily focus on my physical TBR, but I do have a couple other books just on my general TBR that I can get through my library that I might read as well. So with that intro, let's get right into talking about the TBR for this video. I have a couple books I'm going to show, but I think I probably will end up just choosing like 3 or 4 to focus on for the video. The first option we have is A Touch of Jen by Beth Morgan. This is very much a weird girl literary horror that I believe focuses on 2 characters that are obsessed with this influencer to, I think, increasingly horrific results. Next book we have is In My Dreams I Hold a Knife by Ashley Winstead. This is a dark academia thriller about a group of former friends who are going back for their college reunion. And I believe back in college, one of their friends was actually murdered. I think we're following a main female character who thinks one of the other members of the friend group is the one who was responsible for it. Next book we have is House of Glass by Sarah Buchanan. This book I don't know anything about. I think it's a domestic thriller. Picked it up at a library book sale. And yeah, I don't know anything about it, but I'm pretty sure I can get the audiobook through my library, so I probably will tandem read this. I also just in general like to read thrillers because I feel like I can get through them pretty quickly. But yeah, definitely have no idea about this one. Next book we have is Did You Hear About Kitty Carr by Crystal Smith Paul. I don't particularly know anything else about this other than it does have a lot of like Evelyn Hugo energy to it. I do believe a lot of people really like this book, so I'm interested in seeing if I will like it as well. And the last physical book I have for this TBR, speaking of Taylor Jenkins Reid, is Malibu Rising. I have now read 3 Taylor Jenkins Reid books, and I've had middling results. I've given them a 3.5, a 4, and a 5-star, so I really don't know where I'm going to land with this one. I do believe, though, that a lot of people that like Daisy Jones and the Six and Evelyn Hugo tend to not really like Carrie Soto and Malibu Rising, and Carrie Soto is the book from Taylor Jenkins Reid that I gave 5 stars, so I have high hopes that this will be a book I rate pretty highly if it's considered very similar to that one versus some of her other books. This is another one of her like fake famous people novels that follows the children of this fictitious famous singer named Mick Riva, who's also like a very, very side character in Daisy Jones and the Six. I believe it has bouncing around timelines. I think it focuses on all the siblings and their relationships with one another, as well as their kind of like tumultuous relationship with their father. And I think it's also set around the oldest daughter's like birthday party, so I think the like present timeline happens all over the course of one night. I do think overall, even if I wasn't like super connected with the characters in some of Taylor Jenkins Reid's books, I do overall like her writing style and her kind of like way of weaving in like the overarching theme of her books. So I'm interested in checking this one out and see where I end up falling on if I like it or not. So those are all the books on my physical TBR I'm considering reading for this video. I also have another book I'm planning on reading that I'm just going to read as an audiobook from my library, and that is My Year of Rest and Relaxation by Ottessa Moshfegh. This is a literary fiction, kind of like weird girl / thought daughter type of book that got really, really popular in 2020 with the kind of like book talk revival that was going on. I'm in particular adding this one to my TBR because it's actually a book my wife read relatively recently and really enjoyed, and she was saying that I should try and read it as well. And it is definitely a book that's very much outside of my usual genre, so this one is definitely going to be added to the TBR. Okay, so that is it for the TBR for this video. I think I'll also really quick mention what my kind of like usual genre is for reference, and that is that I usually pretty much only read queer romances. Primarily queer historical romance or queer fantasy romances are my favorite genres. I will read a like non-romance fantasy or sometimes a straight romantasy, but it's definitely not my preferred genre. I also think I do read a decent amount of nonfiction, primarily like science nonfiction and like sociology nonfiction. Anything that focuses on a like societal phenomenon and then like looks at it from a bunch of different angles, or if it's in any way related to like tech or the internet, I feel like those types of nonfictions I find really interesting and very relevant. And to say that the books in this video are kind of like outside my comfort zone, it's not that I've never ever read from these genres before. It's just like not a genre I tend to gravitate towards. Obviously, I picked up these books for a reason. Even if that reason was it seemed vaguely interesting and I was going to get it for basically free at a library book sale, which is definitely the case for some of the books I just showed you. But yeah, I figured since I have them, I might as well at least give them a try. I'm not going to force myself to read through them if I don't like them, but I feel like a lot of them have just been like sitting untouched in my physical TBR for a while now, that I really want to give them at least a good old-fashioned college try to see if I like them or not. So yeah, that is the plan for this video. So let's go ahead and jump into the first book I chose from my TBR. So the first book we're going to be talking about is A Touch of Jen by Beth Morgan. This book is like weird girl lit fic that a lot of people compare to Bunny by Mona Awad, which is definitely a very big book talk, booktube book that got really popular in like 2020. I've read that book and I quite liked it. My wife also read it and she did not like it, but I think either way you kind of fall, it's definitely a book that there's a lot to discuss. And I feel like this book is very similar because it has the same like surreal elements where you aren't really sure what is real and what is in the characters' heads. Anyway, A Touch of Jen follows our two main characters, Remy and Alicia, who are a couple, and they are like obsessed with Remy's former coworker, who's this like up-and-coming influencer named Jen. They end up running into Jen, and she invites them to her rich boyfriend's house in the Hamptons for like a weekend away with her friends. And that event ends up being the like turning point in their obsession and feelings towards Jen. I'll talk more generally about the book, and then I'll also give some kind of light spoilers if you want to skip ahead. But speaking more generally, I really like the writing. I think the dialogue is very realistic for these like pretentious younger millennials. There's a lot of like friend group dynamic mind games going on, and I've laughed out loud at quite a few things. I'll say there was like pretty little horror for the first like third of the book, and then there was a scene where I was like, oh no, oh no, 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 no. And I think I see where we are going in terms of like the themes of the book. Okay, talking about spoilers, this is very minor because it's revealed in literally like page 1 of the book. But Remy and Alicia have this almost like cheating fetish roleplay going on where Alicia pretends to be Jen and that Remy is cheating on Alicia with Jen, but Alicia is still like playing the role of Jen. But you can definitely see where that element is interacting with another different theme from the book about becoming your like best actualized self. And I feel like the plot is going to go that Alicia is like trying to become Jen. Like she sees her idealized self as being Jen. And I can only assume that it's going to be done in a very horrific way. Overall, I am really liking this and very interested in seeing where the story is going to go. I also would like to see if my wife would want to read this because I do feel like just with the things that have been focused on, this is probably going to fix a lot of the issues she had with Bunny. I could see it being more up her alley and that she probably would enjoy this one. But yes, I'm right around halfway in reading this. I think there's maybe like 4 or 5 overarching parts, and I'm in the middle of part 3 right now. So I probably will read just like the rest of this in the next day or so, and hopefully come back to you then with my final update. So I finished reading A Touch of Jen, and this definitely went to some weird places in the end. I do think that the kind of like prediction I had for where I thought the book was going to go didn't really happen in the end. And I feel like some of the like parasocial influencer messaging and themes from the beginning of the book like didn't really stay relevant that much in the later half. And instead we kind of got more like woo-woo self-help manifesting commentary. I don't know if it's like I'm being a little too dense, but I feel like this definitely wasn't a book where you're guessing what is real and what is fake. I don't really feel like what was happening in the end was just in the main character Remy's head. Especially because we like kind of see the main antagonistic force even before a lot of the really like traumatic stuff starts happening to him. I'm mostly like more confused maybe about what the very ending meant and what exactly the like consummate result was supposed to be. That is definitely the part where I could see the argument being made that Remy is hallucinating something over him actually like doing his consummate result. Overall, I did really like this. I think I'm going to give this 4 stars. I do think if you want a book that is like similar to Bunny in like how trippy it is, how much it like makes fun of like millennials with that like supernatural element, this is a good book. And it is also a lot shorter than Bunny. One of the critiques I did read when I was like checking out some like Reddit ending explained type posts is a lot of people feel like since this was Beth Morgan's debut, she kind of maybe threw everything she possibly had into one book. But I personally feel like a short book that has a lot going on, I'd much rather have that than a short book that has too little going on. But yeah, I definitely think this book could have been longer to like flesh out some of the elements that sort of like fell by the wayside earlier on. But overall, I thought it was really good. I definitely think this is a book that my wife would probably like, so I was honestly considering unhauling this at some point, but I feel like I am probably going to want to keep this now because I could see myself honestly rereading this or having my wife read it and then us discussing it, so I think I'm going to keep this one in my collection. Definitely a very successful book to start off this vlog with. So let's talk about My Year of Rest and Relaxation by Ottessa Moshfegh. This is another like weird girl lit fic that focuses on our unnamed narrator who is a woman in her mid-20s who after the death of her parents decides she's going to try and sleep for an entire year using a combination of drugs to kind of keep her asleep for 20 hours a day. She's suffering from some sort of like anxiety or like easily agitated state where she just wants to kind of completely shut off the outside world. And her plan is after she slept for a year, she will kind of like emerge into a new state, a new life, where she's no longer burdened by the feelings she had from her old life. I'm currently reading this book as an audiobook, and I am 44% of the way through. This audiobook is relatively short. It's only like a little over 7 hours. I will say something very brief that might be a little controversial about the audiobook. It is narrated by Julia Whelan, and I am not the biggest fan of Julia Whelan as an audiobook narrator. I know she's a lot of booktubers' like favorite audiobook narrator. I personally find her like kind of base level voice that she gives the main characters a little boring and like not with a lot of affect. Obviously it kind of works for a book like this where the main character is very much at a like plateau emotionally from being in her like super drugged out sleep state. But I feel like it hasn't worked in the past with other books that I've heard her narrate. However, it's not like I found her narration annoying enough that I'm going to put the audiobook down. It's perfectly serviceable for the sake of me getting through it. Anyway, like I just said, I'm 44% of the way through. I'm in the middle of chapter 4. The chapters are like super long in this book. I'm pretty sure there's only 8 in total. And so far, I am actually really enjoying this. I really like a lot of the like sarcastic and ironic elements like poking fun at the art world, as well as like being just like a young urban professional in New York City. The writing style definitely uses a lot of the characters' flaws as like the defining characteristics or traits that like make up that character and make them distinct. But I still find at the same time the characters of like our main narrator and her best friend Reba to be pretty likable. Like even if they are very flawed, you don't want anything bad to happen to either of them. There also have been quite a few parts in this book that have made me laugh out loud. And I feel like this book being kind of like a period piece, being set in the year 2000, reflects really well with the like mentality and personality of the main character. I settled on reading this book mostly because of the fact that my wife read it maybe like a month or two ago and really liked it and was actually encouraging me to read it as well. And it is very much a book that is outside of my comfort zone. I tend not to read books in like the literary fiction genre in general, especially the like kind of subgenre of 20-something woman trying to make her way in the world. To get me to read contemporary without any type of like magical element, there needs to be usually something gay going on, and I'm pretty sure there isn't anything like that in this book. So you're definitely out of my comfort zone, but I am enjoying it. Enough so that I honestly would be considering reading another Ottessa Moshfegh book. This I feel like is definitely her most popular and was one of the ones that kind of also became a BookTok booktube book around 2020. It's definitely not a book I had on my radar personally to read because it is so out of my comfort zone, but hearing my wife gives it such a positive endorsement made me a lot more amenable to wanting to read it, and I'm definitely glad I'm reading it now. So that's how the reading is going so far. I will probably get back to reading more of this, and I'll come back to you soon with my next update. So I finished reading My Year of Rest and Relaxation, and I thought I would have an expert who has also read the book come on to talk with me. This is my lovely wife.
Hi.
Do you wish to introduce yourself?
Sure, I don't know if I'm an expert, but I did read My Year a couple months ago, so
Well, you inspired me to
okay.
read it for this video.
Because
So.
I really liked it. Is that...
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I will be happy to discuss.
Okay. So, well, what did you think of the book?
I read it really fast. I really liked the prose. I thought it was such an interesting premise, and I just like couldn't put it down. I put the audiobook down. So I really liked the writing, the characters. I just thought it was really interesting. I feel like I haven't really read anything like that before.
Yeah, I really liked the writing style. I liked how unlikable the main character was, but at the same time, like, it kind of, I feel like, informed her personality a lot. I really liked all of the, like, making fun of art, like, and, like art culture that was going on. Yeah. What did you think of the ending? Because I know that, like, that is, like, a big reveal that I really liked.
Well, I kind of saw it.
I
kind of saw it coming because it was set, and I don't know if I can say. But
you can say.
It was set in New York in 2001, so I was like, well, surely. I thought it was really sad. Like, I wasn't sure what to expect because it was very, like, sarcastic a lot of the time, so I wasn't sure if it would be played for, like, humor or, like, nihilism, but it was just kind of, like, sad and moving in a way. And
yeah, totally. I feel like it really made out the main character to, like, she thinks that she's got it all figured out after doing the, like, 3 months of nonstop sleeping, but then, like, seeing her friend die in 9/11 is, like, it makes her seem so cowardly. It also makes it seem like she thought that, like, now she can live her life when really she, like, lost connections and, like, doesn't have, it's like, she thought that she would have time to be with Riva, like, afterwards, but it's like, no, you wasted all those 3 months, and, like, the person that was actually, like, your friend is now gone, and it's like, just because you think you can start your life on your own terms, but you, like, lost the one connection that you had, and, like, the thing that matters most, so.
Yeah. I think it's interesting that, like, I feel like we don't really get inside the main character's head a lot of the time, even though it's first person, but I think we kind of start to understand her through flashbacks and, like, how she perceives other people. Like, we have to kind of infer her, like, motivations and feelings about her family and her job, and it's a journey. Especially how she, like, reacts to her job and, like, leaves it. So
I feel like she is, well, yeah, she's so closed off, and, like, the sleep makes it be like, and then I did this, and then I did this, and she's very, like, matter of fact, but then, like, when she's in, like, taking the, like, super strong, like, which I found it as a fake drug. I, like, Googled it, and it's actually not. It's just, like, made up for the sake of the story.
Makes sense.
The really strong drug that makes her, like, knock out for 3 days and then, like, wake up with, like, no memory of what she did. But during that time, she was, like, sleepwalking and sleep talking and doing everything. Like, while she's in those, like, states is when she's, like, doing the, like, right thing. That's when she's, like, puts herself on the path to, like, go to, like, the funeral and everything. So it's like her subconscious knows that she should be doing things, but, like, her, like, waking self is like, no, I just want to be asleep, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah, that, like, premise is what hooked me. I was, like, kind of looking through Mosh Fig's books, and I was like, this one sounds insane. Like, how does that work? So, I love a period piece that's, like, the early 2000s.
Yeah, I know, like, this is historical, and then it takes place in 2000, 2001.
I mean, yeah, I like a pre-social media setting,
yeah,
to be honest.
Definitely.
Yeah. So.
What would you rate this book out of 5 stars?
Oh, gosh. Probably, like, 4.5 or 5.
I also gave it a 4.5.
Yeah,
I think I'm going to give it a 4.5.
I'm definitely interested in checking out more of the author's work.
Yeah, which of her other books do you think you're going to read?
I'm kind of curious about Lapvona because that's how I found out about her, and it sounds pretty messed up and weird, and I kind of like weird horror, but it's not on Libby or Hoopla, so I might have to seek that out. I think it's like she has, like, an anthology collection, I think, that's on Hoopla.
Homesick for Another World.
Yeah, so I might check that one out. And now I'm kind of in the middle of a couple other books, so I'm not sure yet, but I'll probably check out that. I think, is it Eileen?
Yes.
I think that one's also on Hoopla, so.
Yeah, I think of the ones that I would probably read from her, I'd probably either read Eileen or Death in Her Hands, because I feel like those two are probably the most similar to My Year of Rest and Relaxation, or maybe do her, like, short story collection, just to see what that one's like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What'd you think of Riva?
I liked her. Yeah. I think that, like, she's a good foil to the main characters, because it seems like the main character, who I think is fun that she's unnamed, is, like, so, like, blunt and, like, cynical, but Riva is a lot more, Like, she definitely, like, hides, like, her darkness a lot more.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, she seems, like, genuine in her, like, friendship and wanting to be around her.
Yeah,
So,
I thought
yeah.
she was really fun.
Yeah, so I'm going to give this 4.5. I really enjoyed it, and I definitely think I'll probably read another Tessa Matchbag in the future. I'm glad that this worked out. I feel like it is so different from my, like, usual, like, type of books that I read, but I do kind of feel like I understand why this one was so popular. I don't know if it really feels like a typical, like book talk book, because I told you this before, that it was really popular a couple years ago on Book Talk. Yeah, there's just, like, a lot going on.
Yeah, I wonder why that is. Like, why was it so popular?
Okay, there's, like, a subgenre that has, like, come into popularity called, like, Thought Daughter, which is, like, sort of, like, reading more literary, weird girl adjacent books. And I feel like this book definitely falls maybe into that category of, like, books that you want to read to, like, maybe appear or, like, try to become more, like, educated and, like, think deeply. So I feel like that fits in that subgenre, which I actually don't know if it was, like, as prominent in, like, the zeitgeist back in, like, 2020 when this book got, like, pretty popular, but I feel like that is probably why it's had, like, continuing success, just that, like, a lot of Tessa Matchbag books fall into, like, that category.
Yeah, you said she writes, like, unlikable women all
Yeah.
the time. Yeah, I can definitely see why that would be popular. And it's I feel like it's kind of like an appealing setting because it's like a rich girl in New York kind of
definitely.
partying, and it's kind of edgy and sarcastic, and so I can definitely see why it's, like, very popular.
Yeah,
so.
Definitely. Out of all of her books, I feel like that's another, like, kind of a point in that's favor. Thank you for being on my channel,
Yeah,
bro.
thanks for having me.
So, the book I'm currently working on reading is House of Glass by Sarah Buchanan. This is a domestic thriller that follows our main character, Stella. She is a lawyer that primarily focuses on children and, like, teenage clients in really, like, volatile divorce proceedings. Her job is to, like, kind of assess the mental state and home life of the child to then give a recommendation to the court for, like, which parent should get custody of them. Her client is this girl, Rose, who is currently suffering from traumatic mutism after she witnessed her nanny's death. The nanny had, like, fallen out of, like, a third-story window, and it's kind of unclear if someone maybe pushed her or if she, like, accidentally fell out. And as Stella is, like, investigating the house, she sort of realizes that both the parents as well as the grandmother and Rose herself have, like, something to hide, and there's definitely more going on with the nanny's death. Stella also feels, like, somewhat bonded to Rose initially, because as a child she found her mother's body and also went through a bout of traumatic mutism, so she feels like she understands what Rose is going through. I'm pretty far the way through this book, and I've primarily been listening to this as an audiobook. I think this is the first time I've listened to this audiobook narrator, but I do really like her style, so the, like, audiobook listening process has been pretty enjoyable. I feel pretty neutral about this book overall. I think the story is interesting, and honestly, I still am pretty, like, up in the air about, like, where I think it's going to go, but I do feel like the writing can be a little bit, like, overly wordy and will provide a lot of seemingly, like, random details that I feel like aren't actually giving a lot of insight into the characters. It feels like it's just, like, trying to add more words to pad out the book for length. I feel like in terms of my own predictions, the book definitely has been pointing to Stella thinking that Rose had something either explicitly or, like, accidentally involved with her nanny's death, and that she's possibly, like, a troubled child. Because of the title House of Glass, the little girl Rose will collect pieces of glass and other, like, sharp objects, seemingly to use them as, like, weapons. Not clear if they're just for self-defense or if she is planning on doing something nefarious with them. But I feel like the fact that that's really what we've been pointing to, it's going to end up being a red herring, and, like, someone else is going to be actually the person responsible for the murder. Yeah, like I said before, I think I'm 75% of the way through. I think I'm probably moving into the, like, final climax of the story, because Stella is basically, like, setting up a trap to sort of, like, provoke the family and Rose into having a response so she can kind of, like, definitively decide if Rose is a danger to anyone around her. And I feel like that's going to have some, like, other unintended consequences. But yeah, that's my experience of reading this so far. I think I might switch from reading the audiobook to the physical book so I can make a little bit more progress and move through this a little bit faster, so I can hopefully give you a final update on this sometime tomorrow. Like I said before, this book is not particularly long. I think it's only like 335 pages or something like that, and I have less than 100 pages left to read. So I definitely think that's doable for me to do, in the next like 24 hours or so. So I hopefully will come back to you very, very soon with my final update. So it has been a couple days and I have now finished reading House of Glass by Sarah Buchanan. I think I'm probably going to give this book 3 stars. And it isn't even because this book is particularly bad. It just feels like there was maybe like an absence of good. Just like not a lot of things that really stood out for me. And it felt like in a lot of ways the book never really fully started. It felt like we were in the like preliminary fact-finding stage of the investigation for the majority of the book, and then we kind of hit a weird point with the climax. This book also, I feel like, reads a lot longer than it actually is. This book is only around like 335 pages, and the audiobook is, I think, around like 10 hours. But there's just so many details, like I mentioned before, that don't really feel like they're building up the story at all. It just feels like they're kind of padding it for length. So while I wasn't necessarily having like a bad time while reading it, I don't really feel like this book is going to have like a long-lasting impact on me, and I might forget a lot of elements of it in a couple years or so. I don't know if it's also because I'm very like unfazed and jaded from the fact that the other main thriller author I read from being Alice Feeney, and she always has like the most absurd twists for her books, that this one just felt a little bit more pedestrian. Like I kind of wasn't particularly shocked at who the killer was. I do think that Sarah Buchanan did a good job of like burying the lead and really making you kind of second guess like every single person who was a possible suspect. So I didn't really know who was going to be going into the very end. But at the same time, I wasn't like particularly shocked with the revelations that came about. So just for like my overall reading experience, this is going to get 3 stars. Okay, so we are now at the end of this video. I had a really fun time filming this one and reading the books that I selected. It just was a really good time reading outside of my normal genre. I feel like I found a lot of books that I would not have picked up otherwise, and this video gave me a lot of like good motivation to start them. And honestly, I feel like I want to keep that ball rolling and pick out some maybe other books I have in my collection that are sort of outside my normal genres and give them a chance. So I definitely think we're going to do a like sequel to this video sometime in the future as well. To give a quick recap, as I just talked about, I read House of Glass by Sarah Buchanan, which I'm going to give 3 stars. I only probably read like maybe 1 thriller a year or like every 2 years, so that was the main reason why I chose this book. Even though I only give this one 3 stars, to be honest, I actually probably would be willing to read more books by Sarah Buchanan. Maybe give her like 1 more shot before I decide if she's an author for me or not. The other book I read for my physical TBR is A Touch of Jen by Beth Morgan. I gave this one 4 stars. I was really pleasantly surprised by how much I liked it. This was honestly a book I was considering unhauling just because it is like this really big hardcover, and I usually don't like this format of book unless it's like a special edition or something. But I think for how much I enjoyed it and how much I think my wife would probably like it if she ends up reading this, I think I'm going to keep it in my collection. This was also, I believe, Beth Morgan's debut. I don't know if she's come out with anything since this. I'll definitely have to look that up, because if she writes any more surreal, weird gulf lit fic, I feel like I would be into it, given how much I enjoyed this one. And lastly, for the books I read, we have My Year of Rest and Relaxation by Ottesha Moshfegh. I gave this one 4.5 stars. This was the highest rated book I chose for this video, and I'm really, really happy that I read this. I guess I kind of do get the hype for why this was so popular on like BookTube and BookTok, and I'm definitely going to be checking out more of Ottesha Moshfegh's books. As I said before in the clip I filmed with my wife, I'm interested in looking at Eileen or Death in Her Hands. I think of the other books that she has, those are probably the ones I'm most interested in. She's probably also the most popular of the authors I talked about in this video, so if you guys have read any of her books, including this one, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments down below. And yeah, that is going to be it for this video. If you guys enjoyed this, consider liking, commenting, or subscribing if you aren't already. Consider following me on the Storygraph if you'd like to see my reading updates in real time, as well as following my Bookstagram, which is linked in the description. And that's going to be it for me today. I hope you guys all have a wonderful day, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye!